etc. I don't think that they've dealt with that particularly well. You know, you've got Joe Camel ads, and you've got you know, the alcohol industry spending, you know, multiple times the price of the product on advertising as they do on the product, and you know, a certain amount of that is going to be inevitable as things move on. But I hope that we can find a way to deal with. Well, first of all, cannabis doesn't cause the harms that alcohol and tobacco does. So right off the bat, we're in a whole lot better shape. Our product doesn't kill people. But secondly, I'd like to see us. I'd like to see cannabis as seen as sort of an alternative, alternative healing, alternative recreation, alternative spirituality, rather than something that is, you know, marketed to escape or to deaden or you know, those sorts of things. And marketing matters. I mean, the way something's marketed affects the experience people have. I think in a lot of ways. And so, I don't know. Maybe that's just my personal cross to bear. I don't know. I mean, it's just what I see when I go out to an event. I want to see this as something that's uplifting and you know, given respect. You know, I don't know. I don't know if I've answered your question or not.
Well, why are you inclined to think that the emerging cannabis industry will value experience over volume? That's certainly not true of any other corporation I know of.
Well, I think the way that the regulatory structure is played out so far, I think it lends itself to having people in the industry that have to care about that and have to care about the public. And so to that degree, I think we're on that track right now. As far as, obviously, you know, it's going to take all kinds. I mean, you're going to see, you know, a wide range of ways of marketing this product, and I just want to make sure I'm on the side of the marketing of it that's really responsible and caring of people and caring of the environment, and that we put our money where our mouth is, and that we treat people with respect. And also, because we're asking the public for something that they're a little iffy about handing over, this provides an opportunity to try out some new models, right? So there's like things like B corporations and all sorts of different, you know, and I'm not a huge fan of regulation, but I also recognize that when you're choosing between being a criminal and being highly regulated, I choose highly regulated every time over being a criminal. And so that gives us an opportunity to try out some new things that they haven't been able to try out with other industries. And for the most part, our industry is fairly embracing of it. I mean, in Oakland, it was the industry that went out and lobbied for a tax on themselves, basically saying, you guys are in tough, well, hey, we'll step up to the plate, we'll pay you more money. Of course, they answered that by coming back with then increasing that tax by fourfold, not but 6 months later. So, you know, no good deed goes unpunished in this world, but, you know, we'll see. Yeah?
So, one of the, big, in my mind, selling points for the proponents of this proposition is that it's going to cut costs. In addition to bringing revenue, it's going to cut costs by reducing criminalization rates, so you're keeping people out of prison, you're keeping cops on more important objectives. However, I also understand, and I do have very limited knowledge, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I also understand that current laws for the distribution of marijuana, whatever, are actually going to be, or are actually more lenient than some of the laws that are proposed currently, that are proposed in Prop 19, where if you distribute to someone between the ages of 14 and 17, it's 5 years in prison or whatever. So my question is, do you think that actually it is it is going to save money in the long run in terms of the criminal element of it? Or do you think it'll actually maybe sort of?
Yeah, there is no doubt in my mind that it will save huge amounts of law enforcement costs. A lot of, I mean, yeah, it's amazing how much money is spent on cannabis. And we even have this thing where they come in every year and they try and cut down like weed that grows like just naturally, right? Like, and they cut it down and they stand up next to a pile. It was just there like normal, like nobody ever even planted it. It's not even gonna bud, and they spend millions of dollars cutting this stuff down. It's like just ridiculous. So yeah, I mean there'll be some costs associated with enforcement still, because it'll still be illegal for people under 21. It'll still be illegal, to do it on school property or whatever. But that's going to be a minimal cost in law enforcement as opposed to what we spend now. I mean, I believe it's something like 60,000 people arrested in California last year. And I don't know what percentage of those were over 21, but it's significant, more than half were over 21. And remember, it's still decriminalized for people that are 18 to 21, so it's a fine as opposed to, it's not a criminal offense. And so the cost associated with that 60,000 arrests is huge. Not to mention, I think the key factor here is that right now, if you're 21 or over and you have cannabis on you, that's probable cause to search or do whatever. That's an amazing, the amount of suffering that comes from that, the ability of police to violate people on that level for something so minimal and so easy to find and smell. Taking that out of their hands is going to do a ton for civil liberties, just outside of the cost. I don't know all the exact numbers, but I'd be shocked. I'd be incredibly shocked if there's an increase in law enforcement costs as a result of Prop 19 passing. Yeah.
I was just wondering, given that the Netherlands has decriminalized marijuana, you spoke about this domino effect if California legalizes it, a lot of other states will legalize it.
Right.
How come that hasn't happened in the European Union, where Netherlands has legalized it, yet Germany, UK, France, all those major European countries haven't really stepped forward and legalized it?
That's a good question. I have no idea. I'm not really an expert on the European politics. My guess is that in Europe, it's the difference between each country is much bigger, even though they're small. I mean, things don't spread because they're culturally so different. Like France doesn't look over and say, oh, well, they did it in the Netherlands, let's do it here. They look over and they say they did it in the Netherlands, let's not do it here. Unfortunately, that's how the rest of the country sees California. So it's one of the things we got to worry about with Prop 19. It was 96 that we passed 215, and 15 years later we have 14 more states. 14 years later we have 14. So we've only added one state per year essentially. I mean, they've come in chunks, but one state per year on medical cannabis. And also no other state has a cannabis law, medical cannabis law that looks anything like California's. They've all been much more stringent than California's law. So we'll see how that pans out. Yeah.
How do you think things are going to play out if Prop 19 fails?
Depends on how much it fails by. I think if it gets 49, 48, 47%, that we have a much bigger movement and it's never going to fail again. That it moves on and that the other states feel like, oh my God, California got so close, and it gets just totally infused and the ball keeps moving on the cultural effect of this sense of inevitability, and the business stuff continues to roll on, and you continue to get more influx of capital into this industry. You got to remember Colorado is an interesting thing that, living in Northern California is sort of like living in New York. It's like nothing really exists outside of here. And there's a huge industry being built in Colorado. They recently passed a law there for medical cannabis that allowed for dispensaries, and there it's allowed to be for-profit dispensaries, where in California it's all got to be nonprofit. So there's a boom happening in Colorado right now, which by most measures is going to surpass California very, very shortly. And so I think that's going